Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show. I am your host, Bill. This is the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters, and I wish this show would be on a bit of a better circumstance, but as we all know by now, the great Harley Race passed away yesterday at the age of 76. I'll be talking about him a little bit later on in the show. Was originally going to have a guest with me for this week, but he never showed up. So it looks like I'm going to be doing this on my own, which is okay because that's how That Wrestling Show was in the very beginning. It was a one-man podcast. This week, going to talk about the life and career of Harley Race. Plus, going to be talking about the G1 Climax, see where everyone is in the tournament there. Plus, Al Outta Love is back with another SummerSlam report, as SummerSlam is only a week away. Can you believe SummerSlam is just a week away? But we got to talk about All Elite Wrestling. They made the announcement last week. The first show would be in Washington, D.C. at the Capital One Arena. The date is Wednesday night, October the 2nd. Excuse me. Tickets went on sale as it is recording today, and as of right now, ladies and gentlemen, all tickets sold out for this event. There have been reports, however, if you missed out on the opportunity to be a part of this historic event, that there will be more tickets available on a later date. So if you missed out today, like I did, I missed out on it today. But don't worry, there's going to be another chance in the near future to get tickets to what will truly be a historic event for professional wrestling on Wednesday, October the 2nd in the nation's capital. Now, this week, what they happen to do, and this is very interesting, actually, I don't think I've ever heard of this done months in advance for the first live television show of any wrestling event, or at least a weekly television show, is they have announced matches for this show on October the 2nd. We still don't know what the name of the show is going to be yet. It could be just about anything. As Michael Quinn said on Our Vantage Point a few weeks ago, it could be Garage Nitro for all we know. So, but the first match that will air on this new program on October the 2nd, it was announced this week, Cody will be taking on Sammy Guevara. That's going to be a very interesting match. Sammy's looked really good in the two matches that he's had for AEW. And going up against Cody, that's going to be very, very interesting. Then we have a 6-man tag team match. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are going to team up to face Chris Jericho and two mystery partners. Chris Jericho put a statement out on Twitter this week saying that the partners are going to surprise everyone. I've heard rumors it could be LAX. I've even heard it could be Enzo and Kaz. And of course, the last time I went to a wrestling show, Enzo and Kaz invaded Madison Square Garden, which got a lot of FU chants. So, also announced, they will crown, I should say, on that show, their first ever AEW Women's Champion. Now, of course, the AEW World title will be decided at All Out in about 4 weeks. Wow, that doesn't seem possible. But they will crown the first AEW Women's Champion on the first TV show. So that'll be very interesting to see how they determine that. Tag team tournament's going to be very interesting to see how they determine that as well. Plus, Jon Moxley will be there. That's going to be his first live TV show appearance here in the United States anyway, since leaving WWE. So very, very interesting there. It's shaping up to be quite a show on October the 2nd. So, going to be very interesting to see there. I know I'm looking forward to that show, even if I don't go to it. It's going to be very interesting to see how things are. And piece of news that should be brought up is that they did sign Marco Stunt to a full-time contract, and they also signed Bryce Remsburg, not only to be a referee, but also to work in their office. And I got to say, I'm actually really proud of Bryce. Pardon me, I lost my train of thought for a minute. Because I interviewed him many years ago when I was working with SunsetFlipShow.com, which has since stopped working. Actually, since the website's gone down. That was years ago. But no, Bryce was a very cool guy. I have nothing but nice things to say about Bryce Remsburg. I'm actually glad for him that not only does he have that he got a contract, not only as a referee, but also an office position. That is a really, really great thing for Bryce. And he's one of those guys, it doesn't matter if you've watched him on AEW or anywhere in the Indies, Chikara in particular. That's where I've watched him. Got to be proud of him for what he has accomplished in his career as a referee, and now he's going to be working in the office for All Elite Wrestling. That is a really cool job. Congratulations to Bryce. Maybe Bryce could get me a job. No, I'm just kidding. Bryce. Major League Wrestling news. Got to bring this up. Douglas James signed a contract with Major League Wrestling. I had to do a little bit of research on him. He is a kickboxer. He's actually, and this is from the press release, he's an undefeated kickboxer, as well as an MMA fighter from Los Angeles. Court Bauer said in a statement, quote, DJ, Douglas James, is the evolution of what it is to be a hybrid professional wrestler. A former no-gi jiu-jitsu world champion trained by the founder of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, Eddie Bravo, Douglas James is one of the top prospects on the California pro wrestling circuit. With a total of 15 MMA fights between both amateur and professional, Douglas James mixes an array of strikes, grappling, high-flying, and submission wrestling to an ever-growing arsenal. Douglas James will make his debut on September the 7th, and that's going to be a big card there, because that night they are going to have, that's going to be in Dallas, and that's going to be also the first ever War Chamber match, which is headlined by, this is a very interesting team actually, Tom Lawler, the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross, and low key, they are going to take on Contra in that match. I have no idea. Nobody knows what that is going to be. Nobody knows what it's going to look like. Basically, it is a kept secret for the time being, and that event takes place in 5 weeks, September the 7th. You can catch it on beIN Sports if you have that channel. If not, it will be up on YouTube like within a few days after that. It's gonna be something. I'm actually gonna look forward to watching that. So I'm gonna watch it. Brought up last week, Major League Wrestling now having a working relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah. They have announced that Alex Hammerstone, the current national openweight champion, will be going to Pro Wrestling Noah, and he's going to take part in the N1 tournament. In a press release on the heels of the formation of the Alliance, today the two organizations revealed that Major League Wrestling national openweight champion Alex Hammerstone will compete in the N1 Victory Tournament. Representing Major League Wrestling in the round-robin tournament where all participating wrestlers face each other once, Hammerstone becomes the first MLW athlete to voyage to Noah under this new alliance. Established in 2010 as the Global League and featuring some of the best wrestlers some of the world's best wrestlers, this year the annual tournament was rechristened the N1 Victory Tournament. Hammerstone will journey to Japan to compete this August as one of the participants in the annual classic. So, It is a 10-man tournament, 2 blocks of 5 men in each block, and Hammerstone is one of only 2, looking at it, one of only 2 Gaijin wrestlers that will be competing in that tournament. So good luck to Alex Hammerstone on his tour of Japan and how he does in the N1. Speaking of Japan, let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling. They are still into the G1 Climax. There's about a week to go before we get to the finals of the tournament. Now, the finals of the tournament takes place the day after SummerSlam, August the 12th. And as of right now, these are the current standings. In the A block, Kazuchika Okada leading the A block, and as a matter of fact, he's the only man in this tournament still undefeated at 12 points. Then we got a 3-way tie for second. Kenta, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Kota Ibushi at 8 points. Evil is at 6. Lance Archer, Will Ospreay, and Sonata are at 4, along with Zack Sabre Jr., and Bad Luck Fale at the bottom with 2 points. Meanwhile, in the B block, Jon Moxley is in the lead with 10 points, despite suffering his first loss in the tournament, although it being by countout. So he is in the lead. Meanwhile, a bunch of wrestlers are tied with 6 points, including Juice Robinson, Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano, Tetsuya Naito, Jeff Cobb, and Hiroki Goto, and Jay White. Taichi and Shingo Takagi are at the bottom at 4 points. They've got a slim chance to make up 6 points, but it looks like those two might be done. Fale, I think, is done at this point. There's not enough time for him to make up the point differential. So, on Saturday, they got 2 shows, Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, the A block matches include Kenta against Bad Luck Fale, Zack Sabre Jr. against Lance Archer, Will Ospreay against Evil, Hiroshi Tanahashi against Kota Ibushi. That's going to be a big one. That you could almost call that an elimination match right there, with Kenta going up against Bad Luck Fale, Tanahashi, and Ibushi. Basically, whoever loses that match realistically could be out of this tournament. Not mathematically, but realistically could be out of it. And Kazuchika Okada will take on Sonata. Okada is 3 matches away from a perfect record. We'll have to see if he can pull that off. Meanwhile, on Sunday, this coming Sunday, the B block matches, Tomohiro Ishii against Toru Yano, Juice Robinson against Taichi, Hiroki Goto against Jeff Cobb, Jon Moxley against Jay White, and the Battle of Los Ingobernables de Japón, Tetsuya Naito against Shingo Takagi. Going to be very, very interesting as we get closer and closer to the end of the G1. For the most part, everyone is still in it with the exception of about 3 guys, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see where this all goes. Okay, so right now, gonna take a quick break. Gonna send it to Al out of love for our SummerSlam report, and when he is done, gonna be talking about the life and career of perhaps the greatest wrestler to ever grace God's green earth, Harley Race. So I'll be back in just a little bit. Right now, let's go to our SummerSlam report. Here we go, folks. SummerSlam is just 1 week away from this Sunday night, August the 11th, live from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The best way you could see the biggest event of the summer is on the WWE Network. Now, we are only a week away, like I mentioned, from this Sunday at SummerSlam, and this card is really shaping up. Now, the big match at SummerSlam is the Universal Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. However, this past Monday night on Raw, Brock Lesnar showed, in my opinion, his display of cowardice as he attacked Seth Rollins on multiple occasions, having Seth Rollins end up with internal bleeding. Now, I must say that this is truly not an act of a great champion, but in my opinion, an act of a man who is afraid of his opponent. Will Seth Rollins be able to make it to SummerSlam, even if at not 100%, when the big match comes in just a week's time? Now, speaking of incidents that took place this past Monday night on Raw, let's talk about what happened with Becky Lynch and Natalya. As we saw on A Moment of Bliss this past Monday night, Fit Finlay, a fellow Irishman like Becky Lynch, was teaching Natalya the disarmor, how to counter the disarmor when Becky Lynch got in the ring and she attacked Natalya and put the disarmor on her, and then questioning the loyalty of Fit Finlay. However, later that night, Natalya would come back and would lock in the sharpshooter on the Becky Lynch. And then Natalya had these interesting words as she wants a submission match now for SummerSlam. As of right now, it is not a submission match. Will she get that match at SummerSlam? She's already got the title shot. But will she get a submission match for the Raw Women's title? We will have to find out real soon. Let's take a look at the rest of this exciting card for this year's SummerSlam. The WWE Championship is on the line as Kofi Kingston defends against Randy Orton. This is a long history of anger and jealousy between these two. It's all coming down in 1 week. The SmackDown Women's Championship is on the line as Bayley defends her title against Ember Moon. A tremendous opportunity for Ember Moon to win the SmackDown Women's title. Kevin Owens is putting his entire career on the line at SummerSlam as he takes on Shane McMahon. If Kevin Owens loses, he will quit WWE. How about Finn Balor going one-on-one with the Fiend, Bray Wyatt? We have not seen Bray Wyatt in the ring in a very long time, and we don't know what he's like in the ring as the Fiend. He could be even more dangerous than he has been in the past. 3 new matches announced this week for SummerSlam. AJ Styles will defend the United States Championship against Ricochet. It was AJ Styles who took the United States title from Ricochet at Extreme Rules. Ricochet looking to get it back. The Miz will go one-on-one with Dolph Ziggler. This stems from Dolph Ziggler's act of cowardice, in my opinion, when he super kicked Shawn Michaels on Miz TV. The Miz is looking to get payback for the legends of the WWE. And speaking of legends, the Hall of Famer Trish Stratus will return to the ring for the first time in almost a year when she takes on Charlotte Flair. This is a dream match for women's wrestling. 2 of the best are going to go at it one-on-one at SummerSlam. Now, folks, I can't tell you enough. We're right around the corner. We are a week away from the biggest night of the summer, talking about SummerSlam. If you can't make it to Toronto, if you can't be at the Scotiabank Arena, it's okay. The next best thing is the WWE Network. And if you sign up right now for the WWE Network, you will get your first month free, which also includes SummerSlam. Folks, I don't know how much hype there is left that can be said or can be done about this year's SummerSlam. It seems like all the energy in the world that has been built up is about to explode north of the border in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Will Seth Rollins be able to compete at SummerSlam is now a question. Will Natalya win the Raw Women's Championship in her home country? Will Kofi Kingston be able to get revenge on Randy Orton? These are some of the questions that will be answered in 1 week at SummerSlam. With your SummerSlam report, I'm Al Out of Love. Welcome back. Of course, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, yesterday we lost one of the all-time greats in professional wrestling, talking about Harley Race. Harley Race passed away at the age of 76, survived by his by his children, I should say. Harley Race, to say that his life was easy is pretty much an understatement. This man had gone through a lot in his life before he became a professional wrestler and while he was a professional wrestler. The story into how Harley Race became a wrestler. Let's give you the brief synopsis of this. This is from Wikipedia. Harley Race was a fan of professional wrestling, watching programming from the nearby Chicago territory on the Dumont television network. After overcoming polio as a child, he began training as a professional wrestler as a teen under former world champions Stanislaus and Waldeck Zbyszko, who operated a farm in his native Missouri. While in high school, an altercation with a classmate led to the principal kneeing Race in the back of the head as he tried to break up the fight. Enraged, Race attacked him, resulting in his expulsion. Already at a 6'1", 225 pounds, he would end up being 253 pounds, Race decided to get his start in professional wrestling. Race then became the driver of Happy Humphrey, who was too large to drive at the time. Now, I do want to mention real quick about Happy Humphrey. We talk about big men, or we've talked about big men in the past. We've talked about Yokozuna, Andre the Giant, Haystacks Calhoun. Well, this guy was the biggest wrestler, weight-wise, to ever set foot in a professional wrestling ring. He weighed in at 802 pounds. Think about that. 802 pounds. And you would think, he didn't live a long life. Well, actually, Happy Humphrey lived to be 62, so he managed to live a pretty decent life. But back to Harley Race. Early in his career, he got married to Vivian Louise Jones. And while married, and they were only married for a month, tragedy would happen as while driving, Harley Race's car was hit. His wife, Vivian, died instantly along with their child, where she was only 1 month pregnant, and they'd only been married for a month. The accident was so bad that Harley Race almost had his leg amputated and would have been the end of his career. Doctors told Harley Race that he might never walk again and his wrestling career was over. Well, the doctors were wrong, and Harley Race would make a full recovery, and he would end up being a big part in the early years of the American Wrestling Association, the AWA, where he would go on to win the tag team titles with Pretty Boy Larry Hennig, the father of Kurt Hennig, the grandfather of current WWE wrestler Curtis Axel. Eventually, Harley Race would go into singles competition, and he would be one of the biggest stars of the 1970s. Harley Race would win the NWA World Heavyweight title from Dory Funk Jr. in 1973 in Kansas City. The story to that goes, Dory Funk Jr. was in a feud at the time with Jack Briscoe, and pretty much Jack Briscoe was going to be the next World's Heavyweight Champion. Dory was going to drop the title to Jack Briscoe. However, depending on who you believe, or maybe not believe, Dory Funk Jr. got hurt in a farm accident in Amarillo, Texas at the famous Double Cross Ranch. So because of that, instead of having Jack win the title, they chose Harley Race to win the World Heavyweight title from Dory Funk Jr. So Harley Race would win the World Heavyweight title, and he'd have it for a little bit before dropping it to Jack Briscoe. Harley Race's second reign would not begin until 1977, when he defeated Terry Funk in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in the Maple Leaf Gardens. Harley Race is the only man to have ever been in both Funks for the World Heavyweight title. Harley Race would eventually win the NWA World Heavyweight title on 8 separate occasions, with maybe his most notable one being the 7th one, where he defeated Ric Flair in St. Louis, Missouri in June of 1983, and then began an angle where Harley Race put a bounty on the head of Ric Flair, $25,000, for anyone who could eliminate Ric Flair from professional wrestling. Well, this angle would end up leading into what was the first Starrcade. Now, legend has it that a few weeks before the event, Vince McMahon Jr., who at the time was slowly but surely starting his national, run, starting to take everybody away, made an offer to Harley Race. He offered Harley Race thousands upon thousands of dollars to not be at Starrcade and to come onto his show with the NWA World Heavyweight title. Harley Race, being not only the man that he is, but also the professional, declined the offer and went to Starrcade in the main event, where he would lose the NWA World Heavyweight title to Ric Flair in a steel cage match. That main event was ranked as the 3rd greatest match in Starrcade history in a poll determined by the fans many, many years ago. If you remember on the WWE 24/7, before they had the network, they were celebrating the 30th anniversary of Starrcade, and the fans were allowed to pick the 25 greatest Starrcade matches of all time. This match was ranked at number 3. The other two that beat it, if you're curious, Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard in the steel cage match, and Ric Flair versus Big Van Vader, where Harley Race would be at ringside. I'll get to that in just a little bit. In 1986, Harley Race would enter the World Wrestling Federation, and he would be managed by Bobby the Brain Heenan. So in his early beginnings, he was known as Handsome Harley Race, which is a nickname that he used early in his career. It would not be until the summer of 1986 where Harley Race won the second ever King of the Ring tournament. Well, because of this, he would end up being referred to as the King Harley Race. And Harley Race would have probably one of, if not the longest reigns of being a king in the World Wrestling Federation. He had that reign, even though it wasn't a title, but he had the reign for almost 2 years as king. One of his many memorable feuds was with the Junkyard Dog that culminated in WrestleMania 3, where the loser of the match had to bow and kneel before the king, and Harley Race won the match in front of 93,000 fans in the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. After that, Harley Race would go on to a little bit of a mini feud with Hulk Hogan on the house show circuit. There are many matches on YouTube, I would imagine, of their matches where after Hogan beat Harley Race, Race would attack Hulk Hogan and bust him wide open, which would end up leading to 2 Texas death matches that took place, one in Madison Square Garden and one in the Boston Garden. So after that, the rest of 1987, Harley Race would spend his rivalry with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Now, this began when Harley Race was going to the ring for his match on an episode of Superstars. And Jim Duggan would not get out of the way, because Duggan was done with his match. He was going to the back. So what's the best way to go after Harley Race? Hit him with your 2x4. These two men would face each other on opposite teams during the first Survivor Series, and they even had an altercation during the 1987 Slammy Awards. Eventually, the feud would end in early 1988. During an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, Harley Race fought Hulk Hogan in a one-on-one match, and in what would end up being one of the more memorable moments in the history of this wonderful program, Saturday Night's Main Event, Hulk Hogan on a table, Harley Race would attempt a headbutt onto Hogan, but Hogan moved out of the way, and Harley Race went body first into the table. The table did break, but it didn't fall apart completely. He ended up suffering an abdominal injury in that match, and then later we'd find out that the metal edge forced its way into his abdomen, giving him a hernia. And this is how tough Harley Race is, because that was taped prior to WrestleMania 4. Harley Race would end up competing in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 4, which he did not win. After that, he had to take some time off, and they wrote that Harley Race could no longer be king of the World Wrestling Federation, and the crown ended up going to Haku. Unbelievably, Harley Race managed to make his way back into the ring towards the end of 1988. And he would even appear in the Survivor Series, where he would be on a team led by Andre the Giant and Dino Bravo, which also consisted of Ravishing Rick Rude and Mr. Perfect. Now think about this, folks. Of that team of 5, 4 of them, including Bobby the Brain Heenan, because he was a manager, but we're going to talk about the members of the team. 4 of them are in the WWE Hall of Fame. The one who isn't, Dino Bravo. After the Survivor Series, Harley Race would have one last match in the World Wrestling Federation in 1989 at the Royal Rumble, where he fought Haku for the crown, and, well, he lost and failed in his attempt to regain the crown of the World Wrestling Federation. So after that, Harley Race would go on to wrestle in the AWA again, and then he would wrestle in Puerto Rico for the World Wrestling Council, along with Stampede Wrestling up in Calgary. He would make his way to WCW in 1990 and would even have a match at the Great American Bash where he defeated Tommy Rich. He would continue wrestling until the end of 1990, where he sustained a shoulder injury, and that ultimately ended his in-ring career. However, he was not done yet, because at the Great American Bash 1991, he would end up helping Lex Luger become the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Now, it wasn't known until a little later on that Lex Luger would be managed by Harley Race. Harley Race would end up being only the second former world champion in the history of professional wrestling to manage a world heavyweight champion. The other one being Ed Strangler Lewis, who managed the great Lou Thesz. In 1992, Harley Race would lead Big Van Vader to the WCW World Heavyweight title at the Great American Bash 1992. Harley Race would stay in WCW until 1995, when he was in another car accident and was forced out of professional wrestling altogether. Harley Race would end up running a promotion at the end of the 1990s going into the 2000s, World League Wrestling. And this was pretty much sort of a mom and pop kind of wrestling company, if you think about it. Ran basically in Eldon, Missouri, and around there, Kansas City, St. Joseph's. And he had some very good talent there. Wrestlers that he trained, because Harley Race would also become a trainer, included Trevor Murdoch, who made it to WWE, Superstar Steve, Brian Breaker, John Webb, his own son, Leland Race, Tommaso Ciampa, and Jack Gamble. Harley Race was married 3 times in his life. Like I mentioned earlier, in 1960, he was married to Vivian. That only lasted a month because of the car accident. Race would end up marrying Sandra Jones, and the second marriage produced a daughter, Candice Marie, and ended in divorce in 1993. Which is pretty interesting. Or Evan Race. And then they had a son. Sandra was the second one. The third one was Evan. They divorced in the early 90s after 30 years of marriage. They had a son, Justin, who was an amateur wrestler but never really made it in professional wrestling. His fourth wife, Beverly, or BJ, was vice president of the Commerce Bank of Kansas City. They married in late 1995. Race had 5 grandchildren. During his career, folks, the accomplishments of championships and awards that Harley Race received was unbelievable. Besides the 8 reigns as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, here are the other championships that he held. He was an NWA United National Champion, a PWF World Heavyweight Champion, 3-time co-holder of the AWA World Tag Team titles, 9-time Central States Heavyweight Champion, 2-time co-holder of the North American version, the Central States version of the North American Tag Team titles, 3-time co-holder of the Florida Tag Team titles, Southern Heavyweight Champion, United States Heavyweight Champion, 2-time Mid-America Heavyweight Champion, the IW North American Heavyweight Champion, the Georgia Heavyweight Champion, co-holder of the Macon Tag Team titles as well, along with 7 reigns as the Missouri Heavyweight Champion. Also held the Stampede Wrestling North American Heavyweight title, was a co-holder of the IWA World Tag Team titles in Australia, held the WWA World Heavyweight title and the WWC Caribbean Heavyweight title, and as mentioned earlier, 1986 King of the Ring. Now, other awards that Harley Race received during his career: he won, or was the recipient of the Iron Mike Mazurki Award from the Cauliflower Alley Club in 2006, was inducted into the George Tragos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2005, was inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame in 2013. He was a 3-time winner of the Match of the Year for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, 1973 against Dory Funk Jr., 1979 against Dusty Rhodes, and 1983 against Ric Flair. He was also a 2-time Wrestler of the Year for Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, 1979 and 1983, was the recipient of the Stanley Weston Award in 2006, and was ranked number 8 of the 500 best singles wrestlers during the PWI years in 2003. Twice inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum, once in 2004 for his individual work, and in 2017 as part of the tag team with Larry Hennig. was also inducted into the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame, inducted into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, the class of 2007, was awarded the Match of the Year for 1978 from Tokyo Sports for his match against Jumbo Tsuruta, a member of the WCW Hall of Fame class of 1994, won the Sam Muchnick Memorial Tournament in 1986, two-time Slammy Award winner for the Best Ring Apparel, and was a recipient of the Bobby the Brain Heenan Scholarship Award. I'd like to see that footage. Also was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2004, that first class that brought back the Hall of Fame. Was named Wrestler of the Year two times by the Wrestling Observer newsletter in 1980 and 1981. Had the Match of the Year in 1983 against Ric Flair, and is a part of the inaugural class of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, the class of 1986. While I never got a chance to meet Harley Race, and that's one of the... That's something that I, sort of missed out on, and I'll explain what happened. Because Harley Race was scheduled to come to Maryland for an autograph session, and I was going to go to it. I was pumped. I was going to go. It's Harley Race. Well, they had to cancel because of, I think something happened with Harley Race, personal reasons that he could not make it. And I never got a chance to meet Harley Race, get an autograph from Harley Race. But, if you listen to the stories from the wrestlers that were with him at the time, they'll tell you Harley Race was one of the toughest men that ever set foot in a wrestling ring. And I could tell you, he is up there on my list of the toughest wrestlers of all time. I mean, I would not mess. Honestly, I would not mess with Harley Race. I would have never messed with him. I would have had him, if I was in a bar, and in a barroom brawl, I would have had Harley Race on my side. That's for sure. As far as NWA World Heavyweight Champions go, to me, he's on the Mount Rushmore. He is on the Mount Rushmore of NWA World Heavyweight Champions. I would put him with Luthez. I'd put him with Ric Flair. And, you could pick anyone for the fourth spot. But Harley Race is in there. He is on the Mount Rushmore of NWA World Heavyweight Champions, bar none. No doubt about it. And, he may very well have been the greatest wrestler to ever grace God's green earth. He will truly be missed by his peers, by his fans, and by his loved ones. Truly one of the all-time greats in this sport. Harley Race passing away at the age of 76. On that note, gonna wrap up the show for this week, but gonna have to do the plugs, gotta pay the bills, and what I mean by pay the bills, I don't have to pay anything. But if you have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. Follow the show on Twitter at WrestlingShow11. Join the Facebook group, That Wrestling Show Fan Group. Just type that in the search bar on Facebook and you are right there. If you can't find it, it's okay. I always put the link in the description of each episode. You can check out the website, thatwrestlingshow.com, and check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Bill's World of Podcasts. Speaking of podcasts, let's check out some of the other podcasts that you guys should check out. Check out our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast with Joe Murata and Michael Quinn. They talk about the retro world of professional wrestling, and this week ended I think it was their 13th season or 14th season. I could be wrong. It's 13 or 14. But they had a good way to end this season. They talked about the in-your-house format. They talked about should monthly pay-per-views had stopped after the Monday Night Wars, plus the conclusion of Royal Flush of the worst Intercontinental Champions of all time. And they reviewed The Adventures of Sinbad with Bret the Hitman Hart as a guest. And I should say, I do want to thank Joe and Michael real quick for plugging this show on their podcast this week. Normally, they only do 3, but this week they plugged more than 3, and this little program that you're listening to was one of these shows that got mentioned, so check them out. It is worth my recommendation. Also, check out the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing with former referee Mike Crockett, and usually it is with the Brawler Brian Malonis, but this week a special guest takes the place of Brian Malonis. That is Ring of Honor senior official Todd Sinclair fills in for the Brawler. You're going to want to check that one out, the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. And if you like your podcasts done with only one individual, just like you're listening to right now, then check out Greetings from Allentown with Petey Winston. He watches one episode of wrestling each week, and he describes it in his own unique way. And this week, he talks about an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event from March 14th, 1987, just 2 weeks to WrestleMania 3. And if you're looking for non-wrestling related podcasts, I got a couple for you guys to check out. Check out the Best Pick Podcast. 3 fans of the movies. They watch each and every Best Picture winner of the Academy Awards in no particular order. This week, they discuss The Artist, only the second silent movie to ever win Best Picture, and the first black and white movie to win the Academy Award for Best Picture in almost 20 years. So you want to check that out. And you're going to want to stay to the end. You might want to see if they think that was the movie that should have won Best Picture, because I don't remember that being a good year for movies. And check out Unspooled with Paul and Amy, where they watch each movie from AFI's list of the 100 greatest movies of all time, the 2007 list. This week, oh boy, this is one of my favorite comedies of all time. They discuss Bringing Up Baby, the movie with Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. If you've never seen that movie, I recommend you check it out. It is a pretty good movie. I mean, if I'm telling you guys to see it, I think you should see it. So check out Unspooled. And check out all the other podcasts that were mentioned as well. Next week on the show, it is SummerSlam weekend, and gonna have a guest, at least a guest, on the show next week. Gonna preview SummerSlam. Gonna preview NXT TakeOver Toronto. That's looking like a hell of a show right there. And gonna talk about towards the end of the G1 Climax, getting into their final weekend next week as well. On that note, everybody have a good, safe weekend. Have fun, no matter what it is you do, no matter where you go. And until next time, you have been listening to That Wrestling Show, the only podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And for this week, hail to the king.